The marble lobby of Sterling. Crane associates smelled of cold espresso and expensive Lily's beautiful things no one seemed to enjoy. At 7:45 a.m., the space hummed with the percussion of Louboutin heels, the murmur of associates comparing billables, the hiss of the espresso machine. Behind the curved reception desk, she sat with perfect posture in a navy sheath that cost less than 1 hour of the partner's time. Her nameplate read, simply Ms. Vale, no first name. The firm had decided years ago that familiarity bred disrespect. Gabriel Sterling swept past without acknowledgement, his charcoal suit tailored to his powerful frame, green eyes fixed on his phone. He didn't notice she had already reviewed the filing. He clutched the one with a time-stamped discrepancy that could unravel his client. He didn't know the receptionist he dismissed daily held a bar license in 3 jurisdictions and a federal appointment that outranked his entire partnership. But he would learn. When the sanctions hearing came, when the evidence chain surfaced, when the alias Dropede would watch his world invert, the betrayal was already forming. So was the reversal. The morning light sliced through floor-to-ceiling windows, catching veins in the Calicut marble. She arranged her pens in parallel lines, black for general, red for urgent, blue for partners only. Her hands moved with quiet precision across the desk, sorting incoming mail, logging deliveries, preparing visitor badges. Each motion was economical, invisible. Gabriel Sterling entered at 8:02 a.m., exactly when he always did. His overcoat was damp from rain. His dark hair swept back from a face that belonged on magazine covers and court transcripts alike. He didn't acknowledge her. He never did. "Mr. Sterling," she said, voice warm and professionally empty. "Your 9 a.m. move to 10. The Haverton file is on your desk, and there's a courier waiting in conference room B." He paused, hand on the elevator call button. For a moment, just a moment, his green eyes flickered toward her. Something passed across his face. Not recognition. Irritation. "The Haverton file," he repeated. "Fine." The elevator doors closed. She exhaled slowly, allowing her smile to drop by precisely 2 degrees. In her desk drawer, beneath company stationery and visitor badges, sat a secure phone with a single encrypted contact oversight. Her fingers hovered over it. Not yet. The first thread was loose. She could feel it. By noon, the entire firm vibrated with tension. The Haverton case had arrived like a bomb detonating in slow-motion. Billionaire tech founder Harrison Haverton III was divorcing his wife of 30 years, and settlement negotiations had become open warfare. Fraud allegations, hidden assets, a prenup that might or might not be enforceable depending on which jurisdiction applied. The hearing was in 7 days. 7 days to prove or disprove that Haverton had funneled $200 million through shell companies his wife claimed not to know about. 7 days until Judge Margaret Callahan, known for her merciless scrutiny of high-powered legal teams, would decide whether the case proceeded or collapsed. Gabriel stood in the glass-walled conference room, surrounded by senior associates and paralegals, documents spread across the table like surgical instruments. His voice carried through the walls. "Timeline. Discovery. I need every filing, every timestamp, every record. If there's a single gap, Callahan will gut us." She watched from her desk, her screen displaying the firm's case management system. Her access level was technically administrative intake forms and scheduling, nothing more. But she had noticed something, a pattern in the filing records that didn't align. The original prenup had been amended 17 years ago, but the amendment date in the system didn't match the physical file location, and the judge had overseen it. Judge Raymond Powers had been forced into early retirement amid ethics allegations never fully investigated. Her fingers moved without hesitation, pulling up a secondary database, public records, cross-referencing. Judge Powers had officiated Gabriel's wedding 12 years ago. The marriage had lasted 8 months. She closed the window and smiled as a client approached the desk. "Excuse me, Ms. Vale?" The woman standing at the desk was elegant in a trembling kind of waist silk blouse, pearl earrings, eyes red-rimmed from crying. She looked like someone who had spent the night not sleeping. "How can I help you?" she asked, voice softening. "I'm here about the Henderson Trust. My mother's estate. Mr. Crane's office said they'd have the final documents ready today. But no one's called, and I don't know who to." Of course. Let me check. Her fingers moved across the keyboard. The Henderson Trust. She knew the name. She had flagged it 3 weeks ago when she noticed billing irregularities. Hours that didn't match work performed. Charges for research that should have taken an afternoon. Stretched across weeks. The client was being drained. I see the issue, she said, voice still warm. The documents are awaiting partner review. May I make a note to follow up personally? The woman's eyes widened. You do that? It's my job to ensure our clients are taken care of. What she didn't say, it's also my job to document every instance of overbilling for the federal audit that's coming. She handed the woman a tissue from the crystal box on her desk. Can I get you some water? The conference room is available if you'd like to sit somewhere private. The woman nodded, tears spilling over. She led her down the hall, past senior associates who barely glanced up, past partners' offices with their closed doors, and she made a note in the secure file on her phone. Henderson Trust Probate Fraud Pattern confirmed. 3rd instance this month. The web was tightening. Thursday brought the incident. She had been reorganized in the file room, technically beneath her role, but the previous receptionist had left chaos. The Haverton documents sat in a pile on the table, pages scattered, tabs misaligned. She reached for one, read the first paragraph, and felt her breath catch. The timestamp on the financial disclosure was wrong. Not just wrong and possible. It claimed a wire transfer had occurred on a Sunday, but the Federal Reserve was closed that day for a holiday, and the signature on the authorization. She was still studying it when the door slammed open. Gabriel stood in the doorway, face a mask of controlled fury. What are you doing? She straightened, the document still in her hand. Organizing the files, Mr. Sterling. There was a misfiled. That's confidential material. He crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled a page from her grip. You're not authorized to handle case documents. You're a reception staff. I understand, sir. You were simply about to cost this firm its license. His voice was low, sharp, each word a scalpel. You touch legal documents again. You'll be out that door before you can apologize. Do you understand me? You're irreplaceable. A dozen candidates would kill for your position. She held his gaze for 1 second. 2. Then she lowered her eyes and nodded. I apologize, Mr. Sterling. It won't happen again. He stared at her for a long moment, something unreadable in his expression. Then he turned and walked out, documents clutched in his hand. The door swung shut. She exhaled, and then she made a note in her secure file subject demonstrated awareness of timestamp anomaly. Requires further observation. Her hands didn't shake. They never did. The crisis came Friday afternoon. She was returning from lunch when she saw the courier's motorcycle pull away from the curb. Court documents. Time sensitive. She recognized the envelope format Judge Callahan's chambers, but the routing slip attached had been misfiled. Instead of going to Gabriel's office, it had been placed in the general intake pile, buried under 3 days' worth of mail. She pulled it free and checked the date. Response due by 4:00 p.m. today. It was 247. If Gabriel didn't file the response in the next hour, the Haverton case would be jeopardized. Judge Callahan would interpret silence as an admission, and the fraud allegations would proceed unchallenged. She could have let it happen. It would have given her investigation more leverage. But that wasn't how she worked. She moved quickly, scanning the document, identifying critical response points, typing a brief memo outlining the required filing. Her legal knowledge surfaced without effort. She knew the code, the precedents, the precise language needed. She printed her notes and carried them to Gabriel's office. His assistant tried to block her. He's in a meeting. It's urgent. Judge Callahan's chambers. The door opened. Gabriel's face appeared, irritation flickering into alarm as he saw the envelope. What is this? Courier delivery. It was misrouted. The response is due in 67 minutes. He grabbed the envelope, scanned it, and his expression shifted. Relief, followed by something harder. Who else saw this? No one. I came straight to you. He was already turning away, calling to his associates. Get the team in here. Now, we have a deadline. The door closed. She stood in the hallway, listening to the chaos erupt inside. His voice commanding. The associates, scrambling. Later that evening, she heard him on the phone in the lobby, handled it personally, caught the deadline just in time. Callahan satisfied. She said nothing. She simply noted the moment in her file and kept smiling. The lobby was different after dark. Marble floors reflected city lights through the windows, casting everything in shades of blue and gold. The daytime noise had faded, leaving only the soft hum of ventilation and distant sounds of a cleaning crew. She was gathering her things when the elevator chimed. Gabriel stepped out, jacket unbuttoned, tie loosened, a glass of amber liquid in his hand. He stopped when he saw her. "You're still here." Finishing up, she closed her bag, unhurried. The Haverton response was filed successfully, I assume. He took a slow sip. "Yes." Callahan accepted it. A pause. "Thank you for bringing it to me." The words were stiff, almost reluctant. "You're welcome, Mr. Sterling." He moved closer, footsteps sharp against marble. In the dim light, his face was softer at harsh angles of his authority muted. "Gabriel," he said. She looked up at him. "My name," he clarified. "You can call me Gabriel. When we're alone." The offer hung in the air. She could feel the weight of an unspoken desire, the way his eyes tracked her movements, the tension building for weeks. "That's against protocol," she said, voice carefully neutral. "Protocol?" He almost smiled. "Yes, we're very good at protocol here." He was standing close enough that she could smell his cologne leather and tobacco, close enough to see the faint lines of exhaustion around his eyes, the way his jaw tightened when he was holding something back. "I should go," she said. He didn't step back. "Ms. Vale." Her name was barely a whisper. "Why do I feel like you see everything?" Her heart beat steadily. Her voice remained calm. "I'm just the receptionist, Mr. Sterling." His expression flickered frustration, desire, something almost like fear. Then his phone buzzed. The moment shattered. He pulled it from his pocket, read the screen, and his face hardened into the mask she knew so well. "Excuse me." He turned and walked away, elevator doors closing behind him. She stood alone in the lobby for a long time after. The COO's name was Marcus Webb, a man in his late 40s with silver hair, a perpetual tan, and eyes that never seemed to blink. Had been with the firm 2 decades, long enough to know where every body was buried. She had been watching him for weeks. He was the one who had authorized billing irregularities on the Henderson Trust, had approved consulting fees flowing to shell companies connected to Judge Powers, had been quietly redirecting client funds. But she couldn't prove it. Not yet. Monday morning, she arrived to find her desk drawers open, files scattered across the floor. The security guard stood nearby, uncomfortable. "Mr. Webb wants to see you. Conference room A." She gathered herself slowly, smoothing her skirt, adjusting her necklace. Her face betrayed nothing. Marcus Webb sat at the head of the conference table, a folder open in front of him. Beside him was Derek China's senior associate, who had always looked at her with envy and disdain. "Ms. Vale," Webb said, voice smooth. "We've had a concerning report." "I see that, sir." "It seems there's been a leak of confidential information. Documents from the Haverton case were accessed from an unauthorized terminal." He slid a printout across. "The access log shows your credentials." She didn't need to look. She knew her credentials had been cloned 3 days ago. She had reported it to IT and received no response. "I haven't accessed the Haverton files, Mr. Webb. My clearance doesn't extend to—" "Your clearance," Derek interrupted, "is exactly what concerns us. You have administrative access to the scheduling system. And coincidentally, information about hearing dates and filing deadlines has been appearing in places it shouldn't. The implication was clear. They were building a case. May I see the full access log?" "That's not necessary." Webb closed the folder. "This is a preliminary inquiry. We simply want to understand what happened." She held his gaze. "Of course. I'm happy to cooperate fully." Webb smiled a thin, cold expression that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm sure you are." As she left the conference room, she saw Derek exchange a glance with Gabriel. The partner's face was unreadable, but something in his posture suggested had been told something about her. She made a note in her secure file frame operation, initiated. COO Senior Associate Collaboration confirmed. Subject partner status uncertain. The clock was ticking. Tuesday brought a small, unexpected triumph. She was returning from the courthouse. She had filed a personal document, nothing related to her cover, when she passed the clerk's office. The line was long, filled with impatient attorneys and paralegals clutching folders. At the front, a young woman was crying. She couldn't have been more than 25, clothes cheap but carefully pressed, hands shaking as she held out papers. "Please, I don't understand what I did wrong. The clerk said I needed to refile, but I don't have money for another filing fee." The clerk behind the counter was firm. "Ma'am, the documents are incomplete. You're missing the certification page. Without it, the court can't accept. I submitted everything. I swear I—" She stepped forward without thinking. "Excuse me." Both women looked up. "May I see the documents?" The young woman hesitated, then handed them over. She flipped through quickly, trained at catching the problem immediately. "The certification is here," she said, pointing to a page near the back. "It was misordered during assembly. If you resubmit with pages correctly sequenced, the filing should be accepted without additional fee." The clerk frowned. "And you are someone who knows how to read a docket." She turned back to the young woman. "Ask for a supervisor. If they try to charge you again, the certification is clearly present. You have a right to have your case heard." The young woman's eyes filled with fresh tears, gratitude this time. "Thank you to God. Thank you so much. Are you an attorney?" She smiled, just slightly, just a receptionist, as she walked away. She felt a gaze on her back. The courthouse clerk was watching with a new expression, curiosity, maybe even respect. She had needed an ally in the clerk's office soon. She had just planted the seed. The invitation appeared on her desk Wednesday morning, delivered by hand in a cream envelope with gold lettering. "The Sterling Foundation cordially invites you to attend the annual charity auction. As support staff, a formal attire required 07:00 p.m. The Grand Meridian Hotel support staff that she had been working at the firm 3 months, that she had prevented one major crisis and quietly corrected a dozen smaller ones. And still, she was staffed as she dressed carefully. That evening, the simple black dress she had owned for years, her mother's pearl earrings, hair pulled back in a smooth chignon. She looked appropriate, forgettable. Exactly what she needed to be at the Grand Meridian was a blaze of crystal chandeliers and champagne flutes. The city's elite circulating in gowns that cost more than her annual rent. She stood by the silent auction tables, cataloging donations, accepting bids, smiling at guests who looked. Through her, Gabriel arrived halfway through the evening, his tailored tuxedo making him look like a film star. That a blonde in diamonds clung to his arm. She recognized her from society pages as a potential client or something more. He saw her across the room and paused. Their eyes met. Then a heavy hand landed on her shoulder. Marcus Webb, smiling his corporate smiled as the veil. "I'd like you to meet Councilman Reeves and his wife, the councilman. This is our receptionist. She handles the front desk." The councilman's eyes glazed over before she even spoke. "That lovely to meet you." His wife didn't bother looking up from her phone. That Gabriel appeared at Webb's elbow, the blonde still attached to Gabriel. "You know our front desk staff." Of course, his voice was smooth, professional. "The veil is invaluable to our operations." Invaluable, yet somehow invisible. The blonde leaned in. "Oh, you work the front desk? That must be nice." As she smiled, the expression perfect and empty. It has its moments later. She watched Gabriel across the room. Surrounded by power and admiration, their eyes met again. Briefly, this expression unreadable, she turned away and accepted another bid slip from a guest who didn't see her face. The auction ended at midnight. She was gathering materials when Gabriel appeared in the service corridor, alone, tie undone and veiled. She straightened. "Mr. Sterling, is there something you need?" He stepped closer, movement slightly unsteady at the champagne. She noted that not drunk, that not sober either. "I wanted to apologize for earlier. The way Webb introduced you, it's nothing I haven't heard before. It shouldn't be that way." That his voice was rough. You're more than what they see." She held his gaze. "What do you see, Gabriel?" The use of his first name made him flinch. "I see someone who shouldn't be working a front desk." He exhaled. "Someone who notices things, understands things, that someone who—" He trailed off. "Someone who what?" His hand rose, almost touching her face. Fingers hovered near her jaw, trembling slightly. "Someone I can't stop thinking about." The confession hung in the air. She could feel heat from his body, desperation in his eyes. He was a man who always controlled everything. now standing before her. Undone. She didn't move. Gabriel, her voice was soft, careful. You're my employer. This isn't. I know. He pulled back, running a hand through his hair. I know what this firm is, but I... His phone buzzed. The sound cut through the moment like a blade. He pulled it out, read the screen, and his face went pale. What is it? Nothing. He stepped back, expression closing off. I have to go. He was gone before she could respond. She stood alone in the corridor, the echo of his footsteps fading. Then she thought of the message she had seen glowing on his screen. For just a moment, Judge Callahan's office at Ethics Inquiry opened. Names required by Monday or sanctions proceed. Thursday morning brought the storm. The entire firm was in chaos. Judge Callahan had opened a formal ethics inquiry into the Haverton case specifically. Allegations of evidence tampering and witness intimidation. The notice had arrived at 6 a.m., and by 7, every partner was in emergency session. The deadline was Monday. 4 days. She sat at her desk, watching associates rush past, faces pale with fear. From inside the conference room, she could hear fragments of discussion. Need to find out who accessed the files. Callahan wants names. She's not going to let this go. If we don't cooperate, she'll sanction the entire firm. The door opened. Gabriel stepped out, face drawn, eyes hard. He saw her watching. For a moment, something passed between them, not the heat of the charity auction, but something colder, something desperate. Then he looked away. Her secure phone buzzed. A message from Oversight. Inquiry confirmed. Federal jurisdiction. Authority granted for Monday hearing. Maintain cover until proceedings begin. For days. She had 4 days to finish documenting, gather final evidence, position herself for the reveal. And somewhere in those 4 days, Gabriel would have to make a choice. She wasn't sure yet which way he'd fall. Friday. 3 days remaining. She had waited until evening when upper floors were empty. The courier run had been her excuse. She had told security she was dropping off a package at the courthouse, which was true, but she had added a stop. The clerk's office was closed, but the night clerk was there, the same woman she had helped with the crying client. She had made an ally. Now it was time to call in the favor. Ms. Vale. The clerk looked up, surprised. What are you doing here at this hour? I need to access a sealed docket. The Haverton case. The clerk's eyes widened. That's restricted. Judge Callahan's chambers. I know. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded document, her federal appointment order, signed by the chief judge of the district court. I have authority. The clerk read the document, expression shifting from doubt to shock to understanding. You're not. I am, and I need your help. The sealed docket was in the back room, behind 3 locked doors and a biometric scanner. The clerk led her through, hand shaking. The file was thick, sealed with red tape and stamped confidential. She broke the seal with steady hands. Inside was documentation of everything: evidence tampering, witness intimidation, financial irregularities. And at the center, a paper trail leading directly to Marcus Webb's desk. But there was more. A separate document recently added. A proposed settlement between the firm and the ethics board. 3 names listed as cooperating witnesses, junior associates. Hood had no involvement in the case. And 1 name listed as a responsible party. Jane Vale, receptionist, unauthorized access to confidential files. They were going to blame her. Her hands didn't shake as she photographed every page. Her heart didn't race as she resealed the file and placed it back on the shelf. She had expected this. She had been waiting for it. Saturday, 2 days. The emergency meeting was called for 10 a.m. She was summoned to the main conference room, where the entire partnership had gathered. Marcus Webb sat at the head of the table. Gabriel stood by the window, his back to the room. Ms. Vale. Webb's voice was calm, almost gentle. Please sit. She remained standing. We've reviewed the evidence in the ethics inquiry. We've consulted with outside counsel, and we've reached a difficult conclusion. Webb slid a document across the table, a termination notice, and a waiver of liability. The ethics board had prepared to close their inquiry in exchange for full cooperation. They want a name. Someone who accessed files without authorization. Someone who leaked confidential information. She looked at Gabriel. He still hadn't turned around. We provided them with documentation of your access. Webb continued. The logs are clear. You exceeded your authority repeatedly. You handled documents you had no right to touch. And Mr. Sterling? She asked, voice quiet. What does he say? Gabriel's shoulders tensed. Webb smiled. Mr. Sterling has agreed to cooperate fully with the investigation. He's provided testimony confirming the pattern of unauthorized access. She felt the words like a physical blow. She had known it was coming. She had seen the evidence, photographed the documents, prepared for exactly this outcome. But knowing and feeling were different things. Gabriel finally turned. His face was a mask, eyes cold. It's a generous offer, he said, voice flat. The firm will provide a reference for future employment, non-legal positions, obviously, and a modest severance. She looked at him, looked at the man who had touched her face, had confessed he couldn't stop thinking about her, had stood in a dark corridor and admitted he saw more than he should. I understand, she said. Security entered a moment later. They escorted her to her desk, watched as she collected personal belongings into a cardboard box. The lobby was full of clients and associates. Everyone watched. She kept her head high. She kept smiling. Monday, 9 a.m. The courthouse was a cathedral of stone and silence, corridors echoing with whispered conversations and clicking heels. She walked through the security checkpoint, credentials in hand, and made her way to Judge Callahan's courtroom. The gallery was full. Partners from Sterling, Crane Associates filled the front rows, faces tense with anticipation. Marcus Webb sat in the center, expression calm and confident. Gabriel was beside him, staring straight ahead. At the prosecution table, a federal attorney organized documents. The ethics board's representative sat beside him, prepared to present the case against the firm. And at the defense table, empty, the bailiff called the court to order. Judge Callahan entered, black robe sweeping behind her, eyes sharp as a hawk's. This court convenes to address the ethics inquiry into the matter of Haverden versus Haverden. The board has submitted a proposed settlement. The court will now hear from all parties. The ethics board representative stood. Your Honor, the firm of Sterling, Crane Associates has agreed to full cooperation. They have identified the individual responsible for unauthorized access and evidence tampering. Jane Vale, a former receptionist, has been terminated and named as the responsible party. Judge Callahan's expression didn't change. Is Ms. Vale present? She was terminated Saturday, Your Honor. She has no legal representation, and I am present, Your Honor. Every head in the courtroom turned. She stood at the back of the gallery, posture perfect, expression calm, and in her hand, she held a folded document. Approached the bench. She walked forward, past stunned partners, past Gabriel's frozen face, past Webb's suddenly uncertain expression. She reached the bench and handed the document to the clerk. My credentials, Your Honor. I am Jane Vale, licensed attorney in 3 jurisdictions. I am also a federally appointed investigator, tasked with examining corruption and evidence tampering at Sterling, Crane Associates. The courtroom erupted. Judge Callahan raised her hand, and silence fell. You're undercover? Yes, Your Honor. My assignment required anonymity to observe patterns of misconduct without interference. And your findings? She reached into her bag and pulled out a thick file. Evidence of systematic fraud. Your Honor, evidence tampering, witness intimidation, and a conspiracy to frame a scapegoat, namely, Myselfin order protects senior leadership. She turned to face the gallery. Gabriel's face was pale. Webb's was worse, sweating, eyes darting. I submit into evidence the sealed docket from this very court. Photograph with permission Friday evening. It contains documentation of the frame operation. It also contains financial records linking the firm's Marcus Webb to shell companies at the center of the Haverden fraud. Judge Callahan took the file, flipping through pages. Her expression darkened with each turn. Mr. Webb, she said, voice cold. Would you care to explain? Webb's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Beside him, Gabriel stood slowly. Your Honor, his voice was hoarse. I had no knowledge of the financial improprieties, but I did participate in the decision to name Ms. Vale as the responsible party. I accept full responsibility for that. Do you, Mr. Sterling? Judge Callahan's eyes were merciless. You accepted responsibility after you accepted her sacrifice. The words hung in the air. She stood in the center of the courtroom, the woman they called just a receptionist, and watched the firm she had infiltrated begin to crumble. The hearing lasted 6 hours. She presented evidence methodically billing irregularities, shell company connections, sealed docket documentation, the pattern of scapegoating junior staff while covering for senior partners. Each piece fit into a larger picture, and each picture led to Marcus Webb. By 3 p.m., Webb had been led away by federal marshals, protests echoing in marble halls. By 4 p.m., the partnership had voted to dissolve current management structure. By 5 p.m., Gabriel stood alone in the emptying courtroom, watching as she gathered documents. Jane. She didn't look up. Ms. Vale, if you prefer. He flinched. I didn't know, he said, about Webb, about the fraud. I didn't. You knew about me. Her voice was quiet, but it cut through air like a blade. You knew what they were planning to do to me, and you participated. I had no choice. There's always a choice. She finally looked at him. You could have stood with me. You could have told the truth. You could have been the man you pretended to be in that corridor. His jaw tightened. They would have destroyed me, and instead, you destroyed yourself. She picked up her bag and turned toward the door. Wait, his voice cracked. Please, I know what I did. I know what I am. But what I said to you at the auction, what I felt, was it real? She turned back. Any of it? Or was it just another performance? He had no answer. She walked out of the courtroom without looking back. 3 weeks later, she sat in the conference room of the newly reorganized firm now, under interim management appointed by the Federal Oversight Committee. The partnership agreement had been rewritten, billing practices reformed, corruption excised, at least for now. Gabriel stood at the window, looking out at the city. The vote is tomorrow, he said. The partnership will decide whether I remain. And what do you think they'll decide? He turned to face her. It doesn't matter what they decide. What matters is what you decide. She studied him. I spent 3 months watching you, she said. I watched how you treated staff, how you dismissed everyone who wasn't useful, how you sacrificed me the moment you felt threatened. I was afraid. Everyone is afraid. Fear doesn't excuse betrayal. He stepped closer. What would fix it? What would make you believe I've changed? She stood. Time, consistency, and a willingness to accept that you may never fix it at all. His expression tightened. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know. She gathered her documents. That's the only reason I'm still willing to have this conversation. She walked to the door, then paused. The firm needs you, Gabriel. You're a brilliant attorney. But if you ever treat another human being the way you treated me, if I hear of anyone being sacrificed for your convenience, I will end your career permanently. Do you understand? He nodded slowly. I understand. She left the conference room and walked to the lobby, past a marble reception desk, where a new receptionist now sat, young and bright and hopeful. She paused, remembering. Then she stepped into the elevator and began her next assignment. Power is not a gavel or a corner office. Power is the truth, held in reserve until the moment it can do the most damage. She had walked into Sterling, Crane Associates as furniture invisible, dismissible, forgettable, and walked out holding the wrecked pieces of their empire. Gabriel had been right about one thing. She saw everything. She saw the corruption, the cruelty, the way power insulated people from consequences. She saw how easily someone could be sacrificed to preserve a hierarchy. She saw it because she had lived it, not just in 3 months of undercover work, but in years of fighting for recognition in a world that wanted to render her invisible. What he never understood was that her silence wasn't submission. Her smile wasn't surrender. Every soft word she had spoken had been a weapon, carefully positioned, waiting for the right moment to strike. She didn't need his apology. She didn't need his redemption arc or his late-night confessions or the desperate longing in his eyes when he realized what had thrown away. What she needed was accountability for him, the firm, for every institution that treated people like disposable assets. The investigation was over. The firm was reformed. Justice, imperfect but real, had been served. And if Gabriel wanted to earn his way back into her life, if he wanted to prove that the man she had glimpsed in that dark corridor was Rial would have to do more than apologize. He would have to change. Not for her, but for himself. Not in weeks or months, but in years of consistent, difficult, unglamorous work. She might be there to see it. She might not. Either way, she would be watching.